Welcome to the Soul Fam podcast. On today's episode, Joshua Lewis, who is a medium and a technological wizard for the paranormal and beyond the veil. I happened to come across Joshua during some of his videos, and as a result of a prior guest that we'd had on the podcast, Megan from Solar Glow Meditations. But the more I watched Joshua's videos, the more intrigued I became by his work, his devotion, his dedication to understanding what we can't always understand after our loved ones pass, whether it's animals or relatives or loved ones that are close to us. And I have a feeling that there's even more you're getting into with your guides and ancestors and spiritual guides. So please, Joshua, tell us all about your work beyond the veil.
Yeah, well, I've been doing it first I'll say thank you for having me on. I've been doing this work for about a little over 12 years. I am an evidential medium. I've been classically trained. But I work in the ITC field, instrumental trans communication, which is using a number of different pieces of technological equipment to communicate to other dimensions. So speaking with mostly loved ones, mostly people's loved ones. That's the majority of the work that I do. I do ask for well-known people all the time. There is no guarantee that I will get them. As a medium, I'm connecting intuitively to them first, and then I have to ask for them through my equipment. Like I said, I do mostly readings without equipment. So, I mean, the majority of the stuff that I do is just a regular Zoom call, phone call of me getting on with someone and connecting with their loved ones. And those readings are just amazing. But, as I think you saw the other night that, I did a session with Megan from Solar Glow Meditations, who is just a phenomenal human being. And, she's connecting with ascended masters and, other people that she's asking for. She's got, Archangel Gabriel that's come through, and Michael. She's had Merlin, who was an ascended master who I didn't even know I thought that was a fictional person. Buddha, Jesus has come through for her on the rods. And so, some of those answers we thought they could expand on maybe with using my equipment. And so that's why we did this amazing session together. So it's not easy work, but it is amazing. So I do enjoy kind of pushing the limits and seeing what we can do, and what can come through. So
yeah, the work is amazing. It's really interesting. And anyone who's had the opportunity to watch Josh's videos, and tell me, your business or your group is called HOPE, HOPE. Can you tell me what that stands for?
So, yeah, I mean, it's really just me. So I don't really have a group. I used to work with my partner, Nikki, who is, also an intuitive. And, we've been together 14 years and we've got 3 lovely children together. And it's a beautiful union. I have had other people work with me in my little group, I should say. But HOPE started out as an acronym for helpers of paranormal entities, because there was a lot of crossover work that I was doing. I still do that, but it's kind of evolved. That acronym has kind of evolved now to another meaning, which is helping other people evolve. So that's really what HOPE kind of stands for now for me.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. I got that sense from it, and that's actually why I was sort of hoping that we might come across that essence in this podcast, because my sense was there's a deeper meaning. I mean, what you do is very deeply meaningful, connecting with people who and pets who have passed on. I mean, the grief is unbelievable. So for many of us, but the sense I'm getting from your work is that there's a bigger, more global sort of undertaking that's happening here, whether you're really talking about it or not.
I mean, I would think so. I don't think my purpose is just to help people connect with their loved ones. I think that it's also to help heal trauma and to work through a number of issues, help people really find a connection to their higher power in a non-religious way. So, I personally believe in Jesus Christ as my master guide, as my main dude. But I love that there's, Bhagavan Krishna, and there's Allah, and there's Buddha, and all, I have a guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, that is a big part of my life. So, and it's all about self-realization, service to others. So, I'm a very flawed individual, so I don't claim to be some holier than thou type dude. I get angry. I curse sometimes. I have, a lack of patience. I'm a very human person. I think that sometimes we see some of these, influencers or people that are online, and they act like they don't have any fear, and they've mastered life. And, that's not me. So I'm not some guy that claims that I've found the secrets to life. I think that, for me in my journey, I come from a troubled background, and I've got 19 years clean and sober. So I have this, story that I'm still living out as Josh here in this plane. But I try to help people understand. Like one of my mantras is, sinner or saint, I am thy child. I'm God's child. So it kind of allows me to be human and say, I'm not always going to get it right, but I know that there is a strength that I have, and that is that I continue to surrender to my higher power and ask for help. And so that I think is something anyone can latch onto and say, no matter how many times I fail at something, I'm perfect in God's eyes, and in the source's eyes, and that's where I need to keep going back to. So that's what I think that's my message to people.
When you mention your troubled past, so to speak, and congratulations on 19 years of sobriety, that's a huge accomplishment,
Thank you.
and much to be honored about that. Um, I'm curious if your feelings as a child or as a teenager, your sense of mediumship was already sort of present at the time.
Not that I know of. No, I've always had a connection to Christ. So, that has been something that I've had at an early age. I share in my book, Finding Hope in the Afterlife, that I would go and, as a young kid, and I would ride my bike to the nearest church, and I would sit in one of the pews when the church was empty, and I would just stare at the crucifixion, and I would feel a connection to it. And so I would draw Jesus as a kid. I'm an artist, and I would draw him, and I felt this connection to him. But around 12, 13, I really started to lose my way in a sense. And I found drugs, I found alcohol, I started getting in trouble. I came from the Northeast and moved down to the Southeast, and where I am now. And I started, catching charges and getting expelled, and all those fun things. And by the age 23, I already had been arrested a number of times, and committed a crime where I shot a drug dealer in a deal gone bad, and ended up going to prison for 2.5 years on attempted murder,
Mm-hmm.
because the guy didn't die, thank God. So, prison saved my life. It was a rough time, but, I was facing life in prison, from a number of other charges that came back. And so, I did my time, and I came out with nothing, and kind of started my life over. And so I had this spirituality. But I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I ended up making a lot of money when I got out of prison. I ended up doing very well with some businesses, and that allowed me to take some time off from trying to focus on money. I've always kind of fancied myself as an entrepreneur. And so I took some time off, and I ended up really exploring spirituality, mainly through the 12 steps of recovery, which I think the 12 steps are something. I think the 12 steps are, for me, what I feel they are is the secret to life. Now, I don't feel that I understand they're associated with like Alcoholics Anonymous because of, Dr. Bob and Bill Wilson, but anyone could follow the 12 steps. And the 12 steps are really something that is like a roadmap to life for anyone. You can just kind of take the word alcohol out of them and you can follow them, and they will really clean up everything in your life. And they will get you in touch with a higher power of your understanding in a non religious fashion. So when I started doing that, I started getting into paranormal investigation. I started kind of going out to locations and recording things and kind of trying to understand what was going on there. And I remember bringing out a medium with me to some of the locations I was going to. And this medium, she was giving us amazing information. I had no experience really with mediums at that time. And it was about a few months into working with her, she said, she was getting a message from her guide, from her angel, that I was going to start getting messages myself. And I kind of was like, yeah, I don't know about that. That's a little ridiculous to me, and so I ended up one night I just felt different. At age 33, I felt different, and I started getting messages from spirit. So I ended up finding a woman who became my teacher. Her name is Deborah Lynn Katz. She's a PhD, and she's an intuitive teacher who has the International School of Clairvoyance. And I started working with her. And, very early on working with her, I found out that I was getting this ability, or that I had it. Now skip to now 3,000 mediumship readings later that I've, done for people. You know, I'm a full on intuitive, but that didn't come until, I was around, 32, 33 years old.
Until later in life, after you've had some work to do.
Yes.
Cool. I'm sure you have brought a lot of joy and comfort, obviously, to thousands of people through your work. Why did you decide to take it another step by developing technology? And I know we don't have the technology here on camera at the moment, but if anybody looks at Josh's work online, it's really interesting. And the app, which we'll talk about in a second, it's really interesting to watch you work with the technology, because not only do you bring voices through, but you are also starting to work with images. So I'm really curious about that. I've done a little ghost work myself. So our backgrounds are both in entertainment, and developed a show where we cleansed homes, and that meant the spirits had to leave too. So we recorded a little bit of that. So I'm a little tiny bit familiar with how this works, but I bet our audience is really curious.
Yeah, I mean, so instrumental transcommunication it's a field of study that requires you to work with, in a sense, electronics to kind of bridge the gap between, this plane and another dimension, to speak with intelligence in another dimension. People like Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla are the ones that kind of started that. And there are others that were the forefathers of that field, such as Konstantin Radovan, who was a Latvian psychologist, Frederick Jurgensen, who was a filmmaker. There was a guy named Marcello Bacci, who was a brilliant man in Italy, working with radios and, bringing through, spirits. And so I think what kept me in that was that I started doing that before my intuitive ability came about, by working with spirit box radios and voice recorders early on. I never gave that up just because I had an intuitive ability come about. I didn't say, oh, I've got an intuitive ability now, I don't need those things. I continued to work with them. And what I found for me was that, my intuitive ability helped me get better results working with the electronics. And so, those things just continued to progress for me, where I was getting great evidence. But, I'll look back. My whole journey's been pretty much, what is it? It's there online, because I've been posting from the beginning of this thing. So, my channel I've had for over 10 years now, and I've been posting from the beginning. So you can kind of watch my journey into this field from day one almost to where I am now. And if you go and watch some of my earlier videos, there's some great evidence, but it's nowhere near where it is now. And you can just go, wow, it's gotten dramatically better. You know what I mean? So, and it's been a lot of trial and error. It's been a lot of, testing new methods, working with some really cool people. And so, yeah. And so now, like you mentioned, I have an app that I created called the Hope Spirit Box app. And I made it free for people initially. I'm coming out with a new version of it soon that will be released on iOS and Android. It's still available on iOS. Their Android version needs an update, so it's not available on Android anymore. But anyone that has iOS can download it for free. And it's one of the most downloaded apps. It's been downloaded hundreds of thousands of times. And if you search Hope Spirit Box app on like TikTok or even YouTube or online, you'll see a lot of testimonials of people saying this is the greatest app that they've ever used. And it's not something I created for entertainment purposes or to make money off of. It's something that I was using so much for myself. And I was like, this should be tested by other people. So, people are finding great success with it. I created a pro version for computers called the HSB Pro, and that's a $5 a month kind of membership to use it, and that's only meant for computers. And you'll see me using it in every video I do, because not because I'm trying to sell it, but because I love it and I use it, and it's such an effective tool. So it is there, and we can communicate with spirit using technology, despite what many skeptics think. So, yeah.
Well, it's all frequency, right? So is that, I mean, about, so my personal sense about all of this is that we live in a parallel reality. So whatever's happening in that dimension, I can access it if I'm at that frequency, or if there's some sort of opening portal, whatever you want to call it, to that particular frequency, which will enable me to communicate or hear or experience or perhaps even see in a way. So that's my sort of philosophical understanding of it. Is that the technological aspect as well in a nutshell?
Yeah, I mean, everything is frequency, everything is vibration. I mean, we definitely live in a world of vibration. Yeah, that's the app. And it is a, you know, yeah, I mean, everything. I mean, this is not the ultimate reality. It is a reality, but this isn't the ultimate reality. I've done enough sessions to know that there's definitely another side. There's another side, and that is the ultimate reality. Some spirit go through, some souls go through different experiences on the other side, where they're still dealing with some of the stuff that they were dealing with when they were here. It's part of their soul's journey. Some people learn their lessons and go through their purpose here to get back to the other side, because we don't come from here. We're just visiting here as a body. And so when you get to back to the other side, it's kind of like a journey back home. And there's a lot of souls over there that are living a wonderful existence over there, and that they're kind of evolving still to either come back here again to deal with unresolved karma, unfulfilled desires. So they're dealing with that, or they're looking to ascend to a higher realm where they don't have to come back here. Some people say, well, I don't want to come back here. Well, okay. If you don't want to come back here, then, work on yourself. Now is the time to do it. Work on yourself and help others live with love in your life. Let go of the desire of need money or materialistic things, or needing fame, or needing whatever it is that you feel that you need here. Let's start to let go of that. That's where Jesus says, wear the world like a loose garment. We're not supposed to hold on to these things so tightly. And if you do, when you die, then you might have to come back here to satisfy that desire in order to, so you don't want to have to come back here if you don't have to. I think you saw in my session I did with Merlin and Megan that, asked Merlin, I said, did Megan and I choose to come back here to do this work? And he said, yes. So that was really cool. I said, did I have a life that I lived with Christ at one point? And he said, yes. So there was that confirmation that I had been given in meditation that it was interesting because, it wasn't too long ago that I was practicing the meditation I practice, which is Kriya Yoga. And when I was in meditation, Christ brought me to, Judea, Jerusalem at that time. I was watching him being crucified. And I remember sitting there or standing there with amongst many other people watching him being crucified. And I was crying because I knew him as a person. I knew him at some time. And that would make sense that as a young kid, not knowing really who I was, yet feeling this connection to him and feeling this connection to the crucifixion and seeing, there was something to that. So, I think that that's something to be said about that. But we all have a purpose to be here and to do something on some level to, I think, service to mankind is what we should be doing.
So in that discussion with Megan and Merlin, was that the first time you've had absolute confirmation that you were with Jesus?
Well, I mean,
has it come through before who you actually are, who you were, what the role that was that you played during his lifetime?
it came through in meditation. So I kind of knew then when that was happening in meditation that I was getting that confirmation. He had come through me and channeled and said, that this was what it was. So there was always a little bit of a, is that right? You know what I mean? So
Sure.
I guess that having that other ascended master cross the rods and really kind of confirm that that was the truth. That might have been the first time that that's ever happened, but I already had felt it. It was just yet another confirmation, I feel like. So, yeah.
Because you were likely someone who worked in his group as a disciple or
Yeah,
something of that nature.
so I'll tell you this, I guess, brief story. So when I was working with that medium early on that I brought out to locations with me, her name is Connie. She would channel a consciousness named Jay. She called him Jay. She called him an angel named Jay. And so for the first few months, that's all we would know him as is Jay. And, after a couple months working with her and some really amazing things coming through her channelings, pulled me aside and said, I didn't want to say anything, but this consciousness that I call Jay is Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
Oh,
like, oh,
cool.
come on. Like, really?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't there yet with what I know now. So I was like, man, this is kind of heavy. Like, like, I don't know if I believe that. I was still kind of in some doubt. I think there was a healthy skepticism that I had because, I wasn't just so like, whatever you say, I'm going to go along with. I still would challenge things. I was still trying to be objective. So one day we were sitting together. We were somewhere and we were having coffee. And I said, so you're channeling Jesus. And I said, I want to talk to him. I want to ask him some questions. And she said, okay. And I said, okay, Jesus, I said, you were a craftsman. You were a carpenter. I said, I want to ask you about things that you made when you were alive. And he said, okay. And I said, well, what are the things that you made? And he said, well, I used to make, tables and chairs. I used to make like the yoke for the oxen for the crop, the thing that would go over the ox. He said, I made a number of different things. He said, but I used to also make these little spiritual keepsakes, these little pieces of wood that I would give to people. And I said, well, what does that mean? And he said that these designs that he would make out of wood would encapsulate, they held his, they held his word. they held his teaching in one little piece. And I said, well, I've been going to Sunday school my whole life and all these things. I said, I've never heard about this.
Right.
So can you tell me, like, can you show us what this is? And he said, yeah. He goes, I'll show Connie if you would like. And it was kind of very nonchalant the way he was like coming through her. What was interesting about her when she would do this is that, you know, she was just kind of like Megan. She, like, you can tell that when she talked that there was just something very pure about her, very innocent about her. There wasn't any kind of ulterior motive. It's like, you can kind of use your BS meter to kind of detect when people are full of crap and they're building themselves up to be more than what they are and all that. So, and when she would channel Jay, she just it was almost like her, it was like another pure consciousness would come through her in a very beautiful manner. It was like not a man's voice. It wasn't like, oh, this is Jay, but like it would be like, you can tell that there was a different person coming through when she would channel. So anyway, I got up, I got a piece of paper and a pen for her, and she started doing like this automatic writing, and she drew this design. She drew this circle. Well, he did through her, drew this circle and then put a dot in the middle of it. And then there were these lines that would start to go out from the middle dot and they would go out to the outer rim of the circle. And it kind of created this like Trivial Pursuit piece, those little, with
Oh,
the triangles that you'd have. And I looked at the design and I said, well, what is this? And he says, I'll explain the design. And he goes, there's 14 inner sections and there's 14 outer sections. And he says there's 14 inner qualities that we have and there's 14 outer qualities that we have. And I said, well, what are the 14 inner qualities? And I have it written down here. And he says, so the way he just, so, okay, so I'm going to try to explain this to you really quickly here because I think it's important. And you asked about it. And
mhm.
so he says, so the 14 inner qualities are honesty, truth, fullness, wisdom. What is that? I can't even. Anyway, love, peace, stillness, joy, trust, giving, compassion, gratitude, security, honesty, truthfulness, wisdom. I think I said that. Yep. Okay. So there's 14 inner qualities, and then there's 14 outer qualities that we have, and that could be anger, need, lust, envy, pain, sorrow, fear, malice. Those are just some of them. And so the design was that the dot in the middle represented God, and the lines that would run away from the inner dot were fear, and they would bring us, the fear would run us away from God to our 14 outer qualities. And they would run around this circle, and he called it the ring of fear. And the fear would bring us away and from God and would bring us to our 14 outer qualities. And we could just kind of go round and round in those outer qualities. And we could stay there until the 14 inner qualities would act like a point, and they would point us back to God. And so this is the design. I'll just show you. So this is the design. And
Oh,
so it's a
cool.
design that has the dot in the middle. You can see the lines that run
Uh-huh.
away from it, and they run to the 14 outer qualities. And there's a line that runs from the 14 outer qualities around so the line, God will, the fear will bring us away from God down. So it's a 3D model that's like a dome. And so the 14 outer, or I'm sorry, the fear will bring us down to the outer qualities, and we can run around. And when we're ready to come back to Him, the 14 intersections that represent the love and joy, they will point us back and bring us back up to God. So this is the design. And she wrote these words out on paper. She was discovering this as the same time as I was because it was coming through this channeling. And I said, I'm blown away by this. I said, I've never heard of this before. I've never seen anything like this. And so I ran home and I carved this out of wood immediately. I went into my garage and I carved it out of wood. so that I could actually hold that. This is the second piece I carved. Actually, the first piece, the
Josh,
one
are
I
you a
actually
wood carver, by
carved,
the way?
the one I actually carved out of wood. This was the first one that I
Oh,
made,
cool.
which was on 12/12/13. So I
Yeah.
dated it, and it has the date on it, and it was in December. And so, that was amazing to me. He said that him and a friend, a younger man, they would make them together and they would give them out to people so that they can hold them. And that this held his design, it held his word, his teachings. So that was pretty amazing. That's when I decided to order olive wood pruned from 2,000-year-old trees from the Holy Land. And that's what this is carved from olive wood.
What's on the
So that
bottom there?
that was that was amazing to me. When I started writing my book, um, that's when he dropped the gem on me that I was the younger man that would carve them with him, and I had a hard time accepting that. I kind of didn't. I was a little, that was a little hard for me to accept, but that's what happened. What's amazing about that, I'm just going to go one step further, is so I belong to a group on Facebook that is it's a cymatics group. And the cymatics is the study of frequency
Hmm.
and sound vibration through water or sand. And so you'll pipe a frequency, a hertz, a sound through a speaker into water or on a silk screen with sand. And depending on the frequency, it will create a shape in the water or in the sand. And like the Om sound will create an elliptical shape, almost like a circle, which is pretty amazing. So one day I was in the group and I saw this guy. This guy he was piping certain frequencies through water and then flash freezing the water to make like an ice, a piece of ice that encapsulated the design. And so he was holding up this design, this piece of ice that had a design, and the design and I was like, wait a minute, that's the life piece design. So I messaged him and I said, what frequency did you use to make that design? And he said 111. I said 111. So I went on Google and I searched, 111 hertz, and it's known as the holy frequency.
Right.
So I went, what the heck is this? So 111 makes this design in water. So I started searching more about the holy frequency, and there's this megalithic structure in Malta, and it's called the Maltese Hypogeum. This is a book about it.
Oh,
It's in Malta,
uh-huh.
and it's an underground facility that it was built 3,500 BC, actually before Christ,
Mhm.
and a group went to study this underground,
I have seen
megalithic
that.
structure.
Right.
And what they were doing was they were searching, they were studying this facility. You can see it's under the ground. People would go down there and use it as a temple to worship God. Well, they studied the frequency of this megalithic structure and they found that it resonates at 111 hertz. Why though? Why did they build it to resonate at this specific holy frequency? Well, the study found when it was done, that the 111 hertz will brain waves to move from the prefrontal cortex, which is like decision making and things like that, over right side dominance, which is in charge of your intuition, your creativity. So it would move you out of the prefrontal cortex over to the right side, which would help you connect on an intuitive level. So when Christ was saying that not only did this hold his teaching, but it held his word, The 111 frequency is actually the sound of a man's voice, which is pretty crazy. And it's like the sound of a man's voice. But what's amazing is that it actually, this frequency is a frequency, and it actually helps you connect with with your higher power. I ended up going online and I ended up purchasing a tuning fork of the 111.
Right.
And so anyone, and I hold live events and stuff, and you won't be able to hear it, but you know, you could put that on top of your head and you will hear this om sound, and it's quite amazing. So I didn't, this design continues to reveal more. It really does continue to reveal a lot more. And so I send these little, I had them printed onto little wooden nickels. I actually wrote the words on it, but I send these to people for free if they ask for them, because,
So I'm
I
beg
want people to experience it. So yeah, send me your address and I'll send them out to you guys if you want.
Yes.
But that's how I
be asking
found
for
that
these
I was apparently the younger male
You're his
that
bro.
worked with him on creating that, which would make sense that when he was being crucified, I was completely beside myself watching this happen in real time.
Do you know what your name was?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what your name was?
I do not know what my name was. No,
We're
I
going to
do
look
not.
this up. I'm going to find out.
I will say
This
that my
is such a
name is
great-
Joshua, which
Right.
is Yeshua, which is his name, which is pretty amazing that I was named after him, that my mom didn't, They say that, a soul will whisper their name to the mother before fully being born, that they will actually whisper the name, say, this is my name.
Right.
So I don't know what to make of that,
We're going to find out some more about this story because it's really fascinating. We're going to find out who you were. So, wow, Josh. Certainly not.
You didn't know you were going to get this today.
No, not at all.
This is amazing. Sorry. I know I've been so silent. I'm just going to jump in. Okay. Thank you, Joshua. The 111 holy frequency, I'm definitely going to look into. I have some friends that work with tuning forks. I know a little, I just know that they find them very useful, not only in divination, but also with healing. Even physical ailments is sort of a supplemental, holistic modality. But the interesting part to me is that you're working with sacred geometry. So you had the shape first. And then through that little thread that we find sometimes, you were able to figure out what it was connecting to. And that's pretty amazing, because if you think about something like, it's been 5,000 years since I took high school math, but let's say calculus, right? Do they give you a shape and then you have to go back and find the formula? Something like that. It's working backwards. You can work it forwards. You could start with the formula. You can end up with the shape, and vice versa. So I just think it's phenomenal that you, do you recognize this as sacred geometry?
Yeah, I do understand that everything has to do with sacred geometry. But again, I'm no genius in the sense that, I was terrible at math. So don't. You know who
you're going to like? Is that an earthquake? Jeez, that's an earthquake.
That was an earthquake.
Did you really just feel an earthquake?
Yes, there's an earthquake.
We've had a lot of them.
Are you in California?
Yes, we're in LA.
Hold on.
We're in LA.
Shaking expected.
Shaking expected.
Oh yeah.
Hold on.
Wow.
Me too.
So what I was going to say before the earthquake started was Pythagoras. So the best
we just sit there.
Math class I took in college, and I'm going to be a math nerd, was the history of math. And I loved it so much. And it was at 8 a.m. every Friday. And once you start learning about Pythagoras and pretty much who this dude was, I'm like, okay, mathematics in general, at their origin, are very much metaphysical and divine. And
Absolutely. It is. I mean, you brought up, Diana, you brought up frequency, and I said everything is vibration. Everything is frequency, sound. It's, I don't claim to understand it all, so I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm, some genius when it comes to that. What I think is, and I think that's actually more important, is that, is it still going? You still
yeah.
feeling the aftershocks
Probably
there?
the USG. We'll have them for a little while.
Yeah, we're
Wow.
okay. I'm just gonna mute.
Um, that, I think that I think it's even cooler that I'm just an average guy in the sense that I don't understand it, but yet it's still presenting itself to me in a way that, I'm discovering it as any layman. I'm not some mathematician or genius in that sense. There's something very real about it. I mean, when you look at, you know, the flower of life, I mean, you can see
Right.
that. I mean, that started with one circle, and they say that, it was God that spoke that into matter with the Om sound. And then all of a sudden he was creating different, realms of matter. And, here we are. Anyway, I like I said, I don't claim to fully understand it. I do know that it's kind of above my pay grade, but yet at the same time, I've been let in on it, and I've been allowed to work within a field that most people just do not understand that it is real. I mean, there's a lot of people that just, this is ahead of its time. The work I do with ITC, I mean, there's no shortage of mediums now, and so there's some great ones out there. There's some great intuitives, and I love doing the work, and I love being able to give them a chance to speak through the equipment and come through with amazing messages to validate. And, one day it will become common knowledge that we are able to do this. But until then, this is where we are. We are in a place where, 90% of the people that find me, can't believe it, don't understand it. I get a lot of hate, you know, thrown at me because they don't get it. This is fake. This is, how could you do this? And I go, how can I do what? I'm sharing the work that I'm doing. I've worked with the Bigelow Institute of Consciousness Studies. I've worked with the Monroe Institute and the International Remote Viewing Association. I've worked with other PhDs who have studied my work. I'm always willing to be transparent, to show people what it is I'm working on, what it is I'm doing. So if people are willing to look at the evidence that's there, they are in for an awakening. They are in for another level of understanding. But a lot of people, they suffer from cognitive dissonance where they just cannot wrap their minds around it, and they get incensed, they get angry. It challenges their belief system, their limited belief system, where they just can't. I mean, according to a lot of people, everything I'm talking to is demons. Apparently, it's all demons, and I tell them I've been doing this work for 12 years. 99% of what I've captured through the equipment has been love filled. It's been positive. It's been, encouraging to look to the light, love, and light. To talk to God. That they're seeing God. They're talking about Christ on the other side. They'll say many times they see Christ here when they're coming through. So there's a lot of amazing things that are coming forth from this work. But people are still, I mean, they're opening up, they're awakening to it. But it is tough sometimes, being, sharing this stuff publicly, because, I do understand why some people do this work and they keep it to themselves, and they say, I don't want any recognition or whatever they say. But I say, yeah, but is that why you're not sharing it? Is it because you don't want, any attention? It's because you don't want to maybe be attacked in some way. I think you kind of have to push through that uncomfortability. And I think it's a responsibility of ours to share what we're discovering, share our experience, our journey with people. I think that's what we're supposed to do. So,
I used your app over the weekend, by the way, or I used it during the last week. Time is a big crunch for me these days. I don't know what day it is, but the app to speak to the validity of your work, at least in my experience. So, and someone may poo-poo what I experienced, but I just used your app and I didn't necessarily record everything, but I connected with a guide, and I also connected with what I feel like is an alien association or an ET association. And it was interesting to use the technology because one, it uses different voices. Then there's the reverb aspect of it. And I'm doing a lot of audio editing. I understand this now and the importance of it. But the messages were very clear. One especially was very, very clear. And the other one was clear, but it had a lot of information associated with it. Both, one especially, the one that wasn't so clear, but gave me a very clear understanding of what's happening in a particular situation, was revelatory, I would say. And then the other was to connect with an alien being, which was really lovely. And I really felt it in my heart, who very clearly said to find her.
What's interesting about that is that there's a man named Frank Sumption who he was the first guy to create a radio sweep box. A radio sweep box is, taking a radio and hacking it so that it scans over radio stations at a very fast rate. And that will create what is kind of the common spirit box today, radio spirit box. He was the first guy to do this. This guy would create these, man-made, handmade boxes that he would take, like old Air Force radio boxes and all kinds of things. And he's one of the forefathers of ITC in early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. And I got to know him before he passed. And what's interesting about it is that he didn't create those boxes to speak to spirits. He created those boxes to speak to aliens. And that was... Yep, he created them to speak to aliens. I'll show you something real quick.
So it was a Lyran. Guide. Since we're talking, so I asked to speak to my Lyran guide or a Lyran sister connection, whatever. Really, and she clearly said, "Find me."
So this is the box. One of the boxes he made. I have a genuine Frank's box, and very few people have them. This is number 78 of what he made. This is an old Air Force box. And you can see he burned a little figure in the top corner. And that's an alien that he burned into it. And so, he would get mad that people would use his boxes to speak with spirit. He said, that's not why I created it. I created to speak to aliens, ETs,
Right.
And so I was going to send that box back to him to have him adjust it.
Oh, he's still alive?
And he was
He's still alive?
I was going to when he was alive. When he was alive, I was going to send it back in 2013. 10 years ago, I was going to send it back to him so he can adjust it, fine tune it for me, and send it back to me. And then he made a post on Facebook a few days after talking to him. And he said, the aliens contacted me and they said they're coming to pick me up in a week.
Oh.
And I went, well, maybe I shouldn't send him my box. If that's the case.
No.
So a week later comes and his wife made a post on Facebook that exactly a week from making that post, that he died of a heart attack. So, it kind of reminded me of the movie K-Pax, with Kevin Spacey, where, he said that, he was this alien inhabiting this body and that they said they were coming back to get him. And then when that time came, just the body was left. But, the personality that was inside of him was gone. And so in my sessions, I do group sessions for my patrons and my members, that want to reach their loved ones. I do them. I've been doing them for 6 years. Every month I do a group session for my patrons and members. And a lot of them were asking their loved ones on the other side, what about aliens? What about ETs? And all of them said, yes, we've seen them. A lot of them come and check in on you when you're doing sessions. So that was really amazing. They're watching you. The Anu are watching you. The different types of ETs. They're good. They said spirits are on spaceships, which is really remarkable that they said that. You mentioned spirit photography earlier, and I use water and I use that backdrop, which is a screen, and I'll use like a baby monitor or different night vision to create a digital interference where they can show their faces. I'll use water where I'll take a bowl of water and I'll position a light next to the bowl, a blue light, and I'll agitate the water as I take photos of the water that creates waves in the water, and the spirit can show themselves faces in the water. And one day I did a spirit photography session using the water, and I captured the image of a perfect alien, an ET. It's really remarkable. It's a wonderful photo of an ET. So it's pretty cool.
We'd love to see it. So is that like a hologram? Is that sort of like a homemade hologram?
Let me see. The one with the alien, the ET, is really cool.
Yeah, she was very clear, Josh, by the way. So it was around bedtime, but I don't know if it matters what time. But I was calm and really listening, and she very clearly, using the female voice that's listed in the app, said to me,
Find him?
Find me.
Oh, find me. Got you. Yeah, I mean, that's why it's important to try and record everything that you're doing within the app.
Okay.
Because, I mean, you don't need to, because if you're doing it just for yourself, but, it's so cool when you can, if you can record it, because then you have
evidence.
Yeah, you have it locked in for yourself. You know what I mean? Hold on. I really want to show you this. So let me see if I can.
And then the other was with one of my spirit guides, who's Albert Einstein.
Oh, really?
I mean, I've been told that. I'm pretty darn sure he's around. But yes, it was Albert Einstein, and he explained something that's going on with someone who I love very much, that I'm not in connection with at the moment. But he explained it in with a lot of detail, but he's explained it in a way that helped me to have a grasp of what the spiritual concept was behind what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot about him doing work on the other side, and that's very interesting. I wonder, that's really cool. That is very cool.
It was very cool. It was a real gift, too, because he explained something about the person that I was dealing with is what's called a golden child. And I don't mean that just psychologically, but there's a spiritual, they denote certain people as the golden children. Not just psychologically that we expect them to be golden, which is true in this particular case, but that they are golden children too. And that they carry a very particular purpose during this time.
Wow, that's pretty cool too. I think I've heard that once before, but I haven't heard that in a while. I feel like it's because
they carry a certain frequency, and so he was explaining that in much detail and with like algorithms and things that I'm not a math person, but it was interesting because then he went into great detail about it. But that was enough for me to go, okay, now I get it.
Wow, that's really cool. I can't find the ET. I'll just show you this, I think. Let me see if I can show you this.
PTs and Jesus Christ. We're doing okay.
I'll just open this up. I'll show you one image. Share screen. So that's a child. Like you could see the two eyes, the nose. It's like swaddled in like a little Can you see that?
Yes, we see that.
Okay. This is just one of my earlier images, but you could see that there's this baby's face that was coming through right here. It looks like there's like a blanket around it that it's swaddled in. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty amazing image. I really would love to find the ET image. I just wasn't prepared for that. But there's a lot of images that I have that I guess I should have prepared. I could have prepared a little bit more on that. But yeah, I mean, spirit photography, not to mention the orb activity that I pick up in sessions where you'll see these balls of light shoot out of my head and enter my body as I'm doing sessions, which is pretty remarkable. It's pretty crazy.
Well, I noticed in the session that you did with Megan that Merlin showed up and that you did photography with him. So that was just sort of interesting. So it's also a confirmation.
Wait, what happened?
You did a picture of Merlin, is that correct?
No, that's just an image I just posted of what I believe Merlin might have been. That was an AI image. I just asked for, through an AI to say, what did Merlin look like? That's all that was.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. No, that was. I wish they came out that clear and beautiful looking. That would have been really cool if that was a spirit photography. That would be.
There might be some connection here, Josh, between spirit photography and AI. Who knows?
Well, they're testing it. There's an app out there it's a ghost app, and they use AI, and they're hoping that Spirit is able to manipulate it in some way to kind of form an image. And I don't know if there's any real proof of that yet. I haven't seen anything too compelling yet, but I guess I'm hopeful that could be something as a possibility. But yeah.
Well, I know we've taken up a lot of your time, and we've certainly gone down some alleyways here we weren't expecting to, and I'm so incredibly grateful for that in particular. And I hope maybe we can connect and we can talk about, you can send me an email, because I know people are going to want to know about what the 14 exterior traits are and the 14 interior.
Yeah, hope everything. Yeah, I'm sending these pieces to people if they ever. All they have to do, I ask that they just pay for the basic shipping, or a postage or whatever. But if they want a piece of it, I send a little card with it. But yeah, hopeparanormal.com. You can find my channel. Joshua Lewis Medium is my other smaller channel, which is where I interviewed Megan, and I did that session on. I'm kind of, Hope Paranormal. I've been sharing a lot more of my well-known sessions I do, and then on Joshua Lewis Medium, I've been kind of sharing more of the connections I do with people's loved ones and stuff. So that's there for people. But yeah, it's been really great. Really, thanks for asking me to be on. It's a pleasure to talk with you both and share anything that I'm doing. I think it's, anytime I get an opportunity like that, it's a privilege. So thank you.
No, it's our privilege. I hope maybe we can connect again, do something else. The work you're doing is really phenomenal. So that would be amazing.
Thank you.